Case 6. Death of married couple Cruz and Berta Terry under suspicious circumstances. Statement was taken from notes left inside Cruz and Berta Terry's car. They were found dead inside their car. The notes found are written by Cruz Terry, and they detail the start and end of a road trip the family was taking. It looks like Detective Padilla photocopied the notes instead of typing it out. Notes by Cruz Terry as follows. It was my turn to rest. I had driven for 8 hours straight, only stopping periodically to stretch out our legs. The trip was going to take us a couple of days. We could have taken a plane, but my wife was afraid of them. She always thought they would crash. I tried sleeping, but the car was never comfortable. My wife was driving, complaining over my lack of sleep. She had slept most of the time I had driven, only waking when our daughter Madeline got fussy. Berta didn't understand that the only thing I needed was rest from driving. She liked to sing along to the radio. All I wanted was to write my thoughts in my notebook. I took every opportunity to take pictures so Madeline could see them when she got older. We had never driven to California, so we put the GPS on. I didn't mind that I couldn't sleep. The scenery had been beautiful, and we passed through many towns. Some were tiny little places, and there were so many ghost towns that I wanted to explore. I had to restrain myself. With Madeline here, we needed to make sure we got to our destination as quickly as possible. She was fussy with all this sitting down. Second day on the trip, and my second rest. We had stopped at a motel for the night, and I had driven another 8 hours this morning. I feel as if my wife should have taken the first shift because the road was getting bumpy. It was filled with potholes and looked old, as if it had been a very long time since it had last been fixed. Or maybe it never got fixed. Maybe it was the original road that never gotten a touch-up in the who knows how many years this has been here. The GPS is leading us through the fastest route, but I feel that it has been a while since I had seen a town. There are no signs of upcoming rest stops or gas stations. We still have half a tank, which will take us close to 150 miles. There should be a town soon. I only let my wife drive for 2 hours when I had her switch. The road was getting mean. I was more used to dealing with roads like this. Still, it wasn't enough. I was sure I had dodged the large pothole in front of me, but somehow I still caught it. A nasty sound came from the car, and it sputtered its last breath before it stopped completely. I tried to see if I could fix the car, but I could not find anything wrong with it. We had no signal, and the GPS kept telling us to go straight. There was a vast desert and mountains as far as I could see. The mountains were far. I had seen them for hours, and they had not gotten nearer. My wife is upset. I don't know what to do. Madeline is crying. It's been 4 hours and no cars have passed. I'm debating if I should walk. Everything is desert. Berta is holding Madeline. We're low on food and water. We were waiting for the next gas station to reload on snacks, but the gas station never came. Madeline still breastfeeds. She at least is getting her nutrients. I let Berta have the water. I only took tiny sips. Night is falling, and I know I can't leave now. It has to be in the morning. I was not able to sleep in the car. I stood watch in the driver's seat as Berta and Madeline slept. No cars passed. I have to leave, but Berta doesn't want me to leave. She knows, like I know, that it will be many, many miles before I come across any towns. She knows it will be hopeless. I will not be able to walk those miles. The sun is hot, and I won't be able to take the last meager bit of water that is left. She knows I will die if I go. I know I will die if I go. Berta tells me to stay with her and Madeline. My notebook is wet. I think it's my tears. The water and food are completely gone now. There is nothing. I am nothing, and no cars passed. It is quiet. I don't know why I didn't notice before, but it is so quiet. Where are the animals in this death of a place? Are they gone? The moon is big, a full moon, touching the ground at first, then climbing up. Madeline is asleep. She is still healthy with nourishment, much more healthy than Bertha and I. Another day passed. It is so hot. No cars, no animals. It is quiet. No one is stirring. I know I will die. I know Bertha and Madeline will die. I fear Madeline will be alive for a while longer as Bertha and I rot in front of her. Madeline is still so healthy, but the milk is gone. Madeline is crying. It's hot. She's fussy. I hate this place. Bertha is quiet. She's never quiet. The moon walked on land again before it rose up. I went outside and tried to catch it. No animals scurrying around. Why is there no animals scurrying around? I walked away from the road, away from the moon that walks the ground. It rises up, leaving this death of a place behind. My lips were cracked. I felt my throat as if it were full of dust. I was lost for a long time, but I found my way back in the darkness. I was going to die with Madeline and Bertha by my side. There was a shadow against the car. How could I still see shadows in the darkness? It was leaning inside the open door. It heard me approach and stood up. It was thin, tall, so very tall, like two men standing on top of each other. So thin, no person alive could be that thin. I stood still watching it, and I knew, even without being able to see a face, I knew it was watching me. A small noise, like something crying, broke through the silence. The thin shadow ran straight into the desert I had just left, a shadow moving until it blended into the darkness completely. My throat so hoarse I couldn't even scream. I peeked inside the car. Bertha so quiet, lately so quiet. I hugged her. I missed her. Bertha was not hugging me back. She could not hug me back. I laid her down gently in the back seat. Madeline, where had she gone? Did she also go explore the desert? Maybe she did. We were all doing crazy things. Has she left before the thin man arrived? Maybe she did. The thin man, so thin. I sat down in the driver's seat. It was reclined all the way back. I left the door open. It was hot. Too hot. I needed breeze. Something was peeking inside the car. Shadowed fingers against the car door, gripping it. A thin, tall, shadowed shape. It was slowly creeping inside. He was inside of Bertha, but Bertha could not see. Her eyes were open, but she could not see. The shadow moving so close to me, looking at me, and my mouth opened in silent screams. My chest felt heavy. Something was on top of me, its weight obstructing my movement. I closed my eyes and told myself to breathe. Sometimes it is so hard to just breathe. It was daylight now, and my hands shake. I'm not sure how long the night was and how long the thin man was there, but I passed out even with his presence. Madeline hasn't come back. Where is Madeline? Did she leave? Bertha doesn't know. She doesn't talk anymore. She stopped talking a while ago. End of notes. This is disturbing. What makes it more so are these photocopies of his notes. His handwriting starts to get shaky and almost incomprehensible towards the end. I could see him slowly slipping into insanity with lack of water and food. He starts hallucinating the moon and the thin man, and more disturbing, the daughter. He seems to have convinced himself that his daughter, who was 1 year old, was able to walk out and leave as if she were older. An extremely sad situation. There does seem to be a thorough investigation on this case, which I'm glad to see for once. The GPS did lead the Terrys through the fastest route. Unfortunately, it was roads that hardly anyone uses. Neighbors said that Terry's left on Sunday, June 25th. The car, along with the remains of Cruz and Berta Terry, were found on July 5th, 10 days later. The autopsy shows they both died of dehydration. However, Berta had been dead for 5 days when found, and Cruz had been dead for 2 days. Cruz was alive for almost 3 days after Berta had died. It seems macabre now, but based on Cruz's documentation, he had started noting that Berta had been quiet the last few days, which coincides with the timeline of Berta's death. He had been so delirious, but it is obvious that she was dead by then. Madeline didn't have anything to eat during those days after her mom died, so it is very possible she died around the same time that Cruz did. But where is her body? Could Cruz have buried her out in the desert when he went on his walk chasing the moon? Cadaver dogs were brought to the scene, but they were not able to trace Madeline. The autopsies of Cruz and Berta do not show signs that they consumed any human flesh, which rules out them eating their baby out of hunger. I think all signs point to Cruz burying his daughter in his delirious state, though I'm almost positive she was dead at that point. I refuse to acknowledge the reference made to the thin man. Cruz was dying when he saw it. For all we know, he was probably seeing death taking Berta and then coming to check up on him to see if he was ready to go. Actually, no, scratch that. I don't actually believe that. I was being sarcastic. I don't want anyone to think I'm nuts like Detective Padilla seems to have been. I don't see why Detective Padilla classified their death as unusual. They are natural deaths. The disappearance of the daughter is odd, but not entirely without explanation. I'll file this case under resolved. There's no need to have the police force waste manpower on finding a cadaver in the desert, or to investigate these deaths further. End of Case 6.
Forgotten Creatures, a weekly horror podcast by Dark Nymph Productions, available on all podcast providers. For more information, follow us on Instagram at Forgotten Creatures Podcast.